Have you ever wanted to live like Katniss Everdeen, Robin Hood, or the superhero Hawkeye? I can't teach you how to steal gold from the rich and give to the poor, but I sure can teach you how to use their most trusted weapon, the bow and arrow. Using a bow and arrow or archery is a great hobby to learn, one that I've been practicing since I was a little girl. You can use it in many different ways catered to your specific interests, such as archery competitions, hunting, or just for fun. The possibilities are endless. Plus, archery has been around for thousands of years. A famous bow hunter, Fred Bear, once said that the history of the bow and arrow is the history of mankind. So let's get started learning the basics of shooting a bow and arrow. First, I'll tell you what you're going to need. Of course, you're going to need a bow and arrow. Today I'll be using a compound bow, a standard arrow, a target, which I have placed about 20 yards from where I stand. You can even make your own target, but it's important that you buy one or make one that's not going to harm or break your arrows. The one I'm using is made out of a hard styrofoam material. Lastly, you're going to be needing a release. I'll be explaining more about this later. The first step to getting started and shooting the bow is to take your non-dominant hand, slip it through the strap, and grab your bow tightly. This hand, when you shoot, is going to be straight and strong. Next, you're going to get into your stance. You should be perpendicular to the target and straight as an arrow. If I could get a volunteer from the group to come and push me slightly, I'll show you that you shouldn't move. Your stance should be solid. Like in the Disney movie Robin Hood, faint hearts never won fair ladies. So confidence is just as important as strength. That's an important tip to remember. Now to getting on to the actual shooting. The next step is taking your arrow and placing it into the bow. The arrow has a small slit in it that slides into the string. That way, if you move your arrow in any direction, it's not going to fall out unless you are actually pulled back and released, and the only way it is coming out is straight. I want to talk a little bit about aiming. Aiming is the hardest part when shooting a bow and arrow. A compound bow uses two sights. So you close one eye, look through this peephole, align the peephole with one of these 4 pins. Because we are only 20 yards away, I'm going to be using the first pin. Depending on how far back the target is or whatever you're shooting at means where you're going to align to the pins. So say if you were 50 yards out, I would align the peephole to the very bottom pin. But I'll just be using the top pin since we're only about 20 yards. Next, I want to talk about the release. The release acts as like a trigger. So you open the release, place it onto the bowstring. When you are pulled back and ready to fire, you pull the trigger and it releases the arrow. So again, we have our hand through the strap. We are in our stance. We get our release set. I'm not going to pull back right away, but I'll show you that your non-dominant bow hand is going to be straight and pointed directly at the target. Your string hand is going to be bent and aligned with your chin. This is the moment where we put it all together. So, strong stance, pull back, aim, and fire. And that's shooting a bow and arrow. Do I have any questions from the audience?
I have a question.
Yes.
Do they make different size bows for different sizes people?
Yes, because men and women are all different sizes. Wherever you get your bow and arrow comes in different sizes, all catered to that person. Everybody has a different arm lengths, so that's the size of the bow is all directly catered just for that person and made specifically for that person.
Oh,
Any other
okay.
questions? All right. Thank you for listening.